Most people who discover Stoicism focus on the wrong things. The practices, the morning routine, the cold shower, the journal, the discipline. They treat Stoicism as a productivity system with ancient branding, and they miss the entire point. Because Stoicism was never about what you do in the morning. It was about what you are at your core, the fundamental qualities of character that determine every decision you make, every relationship you build, every response you choose under pressure. The Stoics called these qualities virtues, and they were absolutely precise about which ones actually matter. Not dozens of them, not a long list of admirable traits. 4, exactly 4. And they argued with a philosophical rigor that has held up for 23 centuries that these 4 are not just good qualities to have. They are the only things that are genuinely, unconditionally, unquestionably good. Everything else, your health, your wealth, your reputation, your pleasure, your status, your comfort, the Stoics called preferred indifference. Things that are better to have than not have, but that are not good in themselves. The 4 virtues are different. They are good in themselves, under every condition, in every circumstance, without exception, and they are the only things no one can ever take from you.
If you want to understand what the Stoics actually believed about character, and what they were building every time they practiced discipline, accepted hardship, or chose integrity over convenience, subscribe and hit the bell. Because after this video we're covering Epictetus, the slave who became the freest man in Rome, the most complete demonstration of the 4 virtues ever documented in a single human life. But first, the 4 Stoic virtues, what they actually mean and why they are the foundation of everything.
The 4 Stoic virtues are wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance. They come from Plato. The Stoics inherited them from the broader tradition of Greek philosophy. But the Stoics developed them into something more rigorous, more integrated, and more practically demanding than anything Plato himself articulated. The Stoics held that these 4 virtues are not separate qualities that happen to be grouped together. They are 4 expressions of a single underlying thing, the correct use of reason. A fully rational person, applying their rational faculty correctly to every situation, exhibits all 4 virtues simultaneously. You cannot genuinely have one without having the others. A courageous person who lacks wisdom is not courageous. They are reckless. A just person who lacks temperance is not just. Their justice is distorted by excess. The 4 virtues form an integrated system, and the Stoics spent centuries developing the philosophical machinery that explains exactly how they fit together.
Let's start with wisdom, what the Stoics call Phronesis in Greek, or prudentia in Latin. This is the foundational virtue, the one the Stoics placed first because without it, none of the others function correctly. Wisdom in the Stoic sense is not the accumulation of information. It is not intelligence. It is not experience, though experience can contribute to it. Stoic wisdom is the capacity to accurately distinguish between what is within your control and what is not, and to consistently direct your energy, your attention, and your desire toward the first category while accepting the second with complete equanimity. Marcus Aurelius returned to this capacity constantly throughout meditations written between 170 and 180 AD. He wrote to himself repeatedly that the pain caused by external things is not due to those things but to his judgment of them, and that his judgment is always within his control. This is wisdom in the Stoic sense, the accurate perception of what is real, what is yours, and what is merely preferred. A person with Stoic wisdom doesn't react to the world as they wish it were. They perceive it as it is, with complete clarity, and respond from that clarity rather than from the distorted picture produced by fear, desire, or the opinions of others. Epictetus described wisdom as the foundational skill in the discourses recorded around 108 AD. Before you can do anything well, you must first know what is and isn't yours to do. That knowledge, precise, tested, and maintained under pressure, is wisdom.
The second virtue is courage, in Greek Andreia, in Latin fortitudo, and here the Stoics made a distinction that most people miss entirely. Courage in the Stoic sense is not the absence of fear. It is the correct relationship with fear, which means neither suppressing it nor being governed by it, but perceiving what genuinely warrants concern and what doesn't, and acting rightly in both cases. Seneca made this precise in his letters to Lucilius in 65 AD. The brave person is not one who does not feel fear, but one who feels fear appropriately and acts from principle rather than from it. This distinction matters because it means Stoic courage is not a temperamental trait, not something you either have or don't have based on how your nervous system is wired. It is a practiced capacity, developed through repeated exposure to difficulty and through the prior decision made in calmer moments about what principles are worth acting on regardless of the emotional weather of any particular situation. Marcus Aurelius demonstrated this distinction precisely in the way he faced the Antonine Plague, the Marcomannic Wars, political betrayal, and the deaths of his own children simultaneously. He was not fearless. His private journals, Meditations, show a man who is acutely aware of every threat and loss. What they also show is a man who had decided in advance what kind of response these things warranted. The decision came before the circumstance. That is Stoic courage.
Cato the Younger embodied Stoic courage at its most extreme. When Julius Caesar emerged victorious from the Roman Civil War in 46 BC, Cato, who had fought against him, faced a choice. He could accept Caesar's offered pardon and continue living under a political regime that violated every principle he believed in. Or he could choose death. Cato chose death, not because he was suicidal, not because he was performing for an audience, but because he had decided what his principles were worth, and the calculation was clear to him. A life lived in violation of those principles was not worth living. His death at Utica became one of the most discussed acts of Stoic courage in the entire ancient world. Seneca returned to it repeatedly. Marcus Aurelius referenced it. Epictetus taught it. Because what Cato demonstrated is the defining feature of Stoic courage, the willingness to act from principle, even when every external pressure, every comfort, every survival instinct says to do otherwise. That is not recklessness. That is courage in its most precise and demanding form.
The third virtue is justice, Dikaiosyne in Greek, justistia in Latin. And Stoic justice is considerably broader and more demanding than the modern legal or political use of the word. For the Stoics, justice is not primarily about systems or institutions. It is a personal virtue, the disposition to treat every human being with the appropriate consideration owed to them as a rational being. The Stoics held from the very beginning of the tradition that all rational beings are members of a single community, what they called the cosmopolis, the world city, and that justice means recognizing and acting on your obligations to that community, not just to your immediate group, your nation, or your tribe. Marcus Aurelius wrote in Meditations that he was first a citizen of the world and that the well-being of the whole community was inseparable from the well-being of any individual part of it. This wasn't idealism, it was a logical conclusion from the Stoic premise. If all humans share the same rational faculty, they share the same fundamental dignity, and justice means responding to that shared dignity in every interaction, not just the ones that are socially rewarded. Epictetus, a former slave, was perhaps the most radical Stoic on this point. His experience of being treated as less than fully human by a society that had stripped him of legal rights had sharpened his understanding of what justice actually requires, not just fair dealing within a system, but the recognition of the rational dignity of every person, regardless of what that system says their status is.
Marcus Aurelius demonstrated Stoic justice in one of the most politically significant moments of his reign, when General Avidius Cassius rebelled in 1705 AD, receiving false reports that Marcus had died and declaring himself emperor. The expected and politically safe response was brutal retaliation. Previous emperors had responded to rebellion with comprehensive violence, execution of the rebel, his family, his associates, and anyone who had supported him. Marcus's actual response was entirely different. He reportedly told his troops that he hoped to resolve the situation by speaking to Cassius rather than executing him, that he wanted to demonstrate to the world that it was possible to survive civil war without bloodshed and without retribution. Cassius was killed by his own soldiers before Marcus could make that demonstration, and by historical accounts Marcus grieved the outcome rather than celebrating it. This is Stoic justice in practice, not the performance of magnanimity for political advantage, but the genuine application of the principle that every person, including a rebel, possesses rational dignity that warrants a response aimed at resolution rather than retribution.
The fourth virtue is temperance, Sophrosyne in Greek, temperantia in Latin. And temperance in the Stoic sense is almost always misunderstood. It is not moderation in the colloquial sense, not having a little of everything, not splitting the difference, not avoiding extremes for their own sake. Stoic temperance is the correct ordering of desires, wanting what is genuinely good and genuinely yours, not wanting what is neither good nor yours, and not being governed by the wanting of anything. Epictetus was the most rigorous of the Stoics on this point. He argued in the Enchiridion, written around 125 AD, that the entire source of human unhappiness is the misalignment of desire, wanting things you cannot control, or wanting things in ways and degrees that make you their prisoner rather than their user. Seneca, as one of the richest men in Rome, demonstrated Stoic temperance, not by giving up wealth, but by refusing to be defined by it, by treating it as something he used rather than something that used him. He practiced poverty voluntarily and periodically, not because poverty is better than wealth, but because he wanted to prove to himself, repeatedly, that wealth was not required for his peace. That is Stoic temperance, not the rejection of preferred things, but the refusal to be enslaved by them.
Marcus Aurelius practiced temperance in a context that made it perhaps the most demanding of all the virtues he maintained. He was the most powerful man on earth, surrounded every day by every luxury, every pleasure, and every form of flattery and indulgence that absolute power makes available. Every previous emperor who had occupied that position had eventually been corrupted by it, had let the unlimited availability of external goods reorganize their desires until the goods were no longer things they used, but things they needed, and the character underneath the power had been dissolved. Marcus maintained temperance against that pressure for 19 years. Not perfectly. Meditation shows a man who was constantly fighting the drift toward comfort, toward anger, toward the distortions of character that power produces. But consistently enough that the historical record shows a ruler whose conduct was driven by principle rather than appetite, who continued sleeping on simple military cots, who continued the practices of philosophical discipline, who continued treating external goods as preferred rather than required, regardless of how available they were.
Here is what these four virtues produce when they are practiced together, and why the Stoics insisted that they, and not anything else, constitute the genuine good. A person who has wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance has something that no external circumstance can create, and no external force can destroy. Their health can fail, their wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance remain. Their wealth can be taken, their character remains. Their reputation can be destroyed by lies, their character remains. They can be enslaved like Epictetus, and their character remains. They can be ordered to their own death like Seneca, and face it with the character they built over a lifetime, because character is the one thing that cannot be taken by any external agency. It can only be surrendered by the person who built it. The Stoics called everything else, health, wealth, reputation, pleasure, preferred indifference, precisely because they are genuinely preferable to their opposites, but do not constitute the good. Only the virtues constitute the good, because only the virtues remain yours, under every possible set of external conditions. This is why Stoic practice is not ultimately about what you do. It is about what you are. Every practice the Stoics recommended: the morning review, the evening audit, voluntary hardship, premeditatio malorum, the dichotomy of control, all of it serves one function: the development and maintenance of these four virtues. You practice the dichotomy of control to develop wisdom. You practice voluntary hardship to develop courage and temperance simultaneously. You practice the justice of treating every person as a rational being, worthy of appropriate consideration in every interaction, not just the ones that are observed and rewarded. And you practice all of it, not to produce a particular outcome in the world. Outcomes are never entirely yours, but to become a particular kind of person. A person for whom wisdom, courage, justice, and temperance are not aspirations but operating defaults, the default state from which you respond to whatever the world produces, good or bad, expected or catastrophic. That person cannot be broken by external circumstances, because there is nothing in external circumstances that reaches the place where the virtues actually live. If this video changed how you understand what Stoicism is actually building toward, good. Subscribe and hit the bell, because next week we're going deep into Epictetus, the slave who became the freest man in Rome, a man who had every external condition stripped from him by force: his freedom, his body, eventually his physical mobility, and demonstrated all four virtues so completely in those conditions that he became one of the most influential philosophers in human history. Because understanding the four virtues is one thing, watching a single human life demonstrate all four of them under the most extreme possible pressure is something else entirely. See the game, control the game.